Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're out there thinking about working or studying in the US, especially if you've got qualifications from outside the US, you've probably come across this name, World Education Services, or, WES USA, as it's often called.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal for a lot of folks in that situation.
Mhm.
And for this deep dive, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. What is WES USA all about? Why does it matter so much? And probably most importantly, how do you actually go through that whole process without, pulling your hair out?
Exactly. And we've done our homework, we've gone through all sorts of stuff, practical guides that break down every single step, articles that offer like insider tips, and even like real stories from people who've actually gone through it.
So yeah, think of this as your, cheat sheet to WES USA.
Yeah.
We've cut through all the noise and we're going to highlight the most important stuff, the things you absolutely need to know. By the end of this, you should feel pretty darn prepared, not just overwhelmed by information.
For sure. So first things first, let's get this straight. What exactly is WES USA? Like, what do they actually do?
So at its core, WES USA is a nonprofit, and their main gig, it's evaluating educational credentials that people have earned outside the U.S.
So it's like they're translating those qualifications into something US employers and universities can understand.
Exactly. They help those folks wrap their heads around what your international education really means in the American context. And that's super important whether you're, looking for a job or trying to get into a U.S. school.
Okay, that makes total sense. But why is a WES assessment like really important for someone who's listening to this right now?
Okay, so here's the thing. For a lot of universities in the U.S., a WES evaluation is non-negotiable. If you want to get in, they need to see that assessment of your international credentials. It's not just a good idea, it's often like a must-have.
Right, so it creates a standard, like a level playing field so they can compare apples to apples or, degrees to degrees from different countries. Are there any other benefits to getting this done?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's also really important if you're trying to impress U.S. employers. Think of it as like a stamp of approval. A WES assessment basically tells them, hey, this person's credentials are legit, and here's what they mean in the U.S. That can make a world of difference when you're trying to get your foot in the door.
So it's not just about academics, it's about jobs too. And didn't our research also mention something about immigration?
Absolutely. It's worth mentioning that credential evaluations like the ones from WES can be really important for immigration stuff too. It's not just a U.S. thing. Like even Canada's express entry system uses them.
Yeah.
So it's this globally recognized thing.
Wow, so it's kind of a big deal everywhere.
Oh, for sure. And one more thing. If you're thinking about getting a professional license in the U.S., like in certain fields, a WES assessment might be required. They want to make sure your foreign degrees meet their standards.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're serious about the US and you've got international credentials, WES seems like the way to go. Now, how does this whole thing actually work? What are the steps involved in getting a WES USA evaluation?
Well, it can seem a bit daunting at first, but once you break it down, it's not too bad. First things first, you got to figure out which type of evaluation you need. They've got three main options.
Okay, let's hear them. What are the differences between these options?
All right, so there's the document-by-document evaluation. This one's like a general overview of your credentials. It's often good enough for immigration or some jobs where they don't need to see every little detail. But then there's the course-by-course evaluation. This one goes deep. It lists every single course you took, the credits you earned, and what they're equivalent to in the U.S. system. Usually you need this one if you're applying to college or grad school.
Got it. So document by document is like the summary, and course by course is the full story. What's the third one?
Oh yeah, the third one's a CPA evaluation. This one's very specific. It's only if you're trying to become a certified public accountant in the U.S. So before you even start, you really got to figure out what your goal is. Are you going for a job, a university program, or a professional license? That'll determine which type of report you need.
That makes sense. So once you know which report you need, what's next?
Okay, so next up, you got to create an account on the WES website. Pretty straightforward. Just give them your info, pick the type of evaluation you need, and you're good to go.
Okay, sounds easy enough. Then what?
Now comes the part that can be a little tricky. You got to gather all the right documents, which usually means your official university transcripts, your degree certificate if you have one, and a copy of your ID, like your passport.
And I'm guessing they want the official transcripts, not just some printout from your school's website.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And WES is really specific about how they want those documents sent. A lot of times, Your university needs to send them directly to WES in a sealed envelope. And get this, they might even need you to fill out some specific forms depending on your university and where it's located. So yeah, don't just wing it. Go to the WES website, find your country and your school, and check their exact requirements.
Right, no cutting corners on the paperwork.
Yeah.
So you've picked your report, set up your account, gathered all your documents. What else is there?
Ah, yes, the money part. You got to pay the evaluation fees. Usually it's somewhere between 160 and 220 US dollars for a WES USA evaluation. But keep in mind that could change depending on the report you need and if you want any extras, like if you need them to do it faster or if you want more copies of the report.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So you send in your payment, you send in your documents, and then what? Just sit and wait.
Well, not exactly. Once WES gets everything, they get to work. The whole evaluation process usually takes about 7 to 30 business days, but the good news is you can track it all online through your WES account. And if you're in a rush, you can usually pay extra to have them speed things up.
That's good to know. But let's get real for a second. Our sources mentioned that some people run into snags along the way. What are some of those common roadblocks, and how can people avoid them?
Okay, yeah, good point. Let's talk about that. One thing that trips people up is processing delays. A lot of times it's because the university didn't send the documents directly to WES like they're supposed to. So double check with your school, make sure they know the drill. And if things are taking forever, reach out to WES customer service. They can sometimes nudge your university along.
That's good to know. What about documents getting rejected? That would be a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a bummer. It usually happens because the transcripts weren't official, like maybe they weren't sent directly or the seal was broken. So again, make absolutely sure your university sends them the right way. And really, really scrutinize WES's document requirements for your country. They can be very particular.
Gotcha. So what happens if WES doesn't even recognize your university? That sounds like a major problem.
Yeah, that's a big one. Before you do anything else, head to the WES website and check their list of recognized institutions. If yours isn't there, call WES support right away. They might have a workaround or some info about your school. It's much better to catch that early on rather than, getting your hopes up and then getting rejected.
Definitely. Our sources also mentioned that incorrect or incomplete documents can cause delays. It sounds like attention to detail is key here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Triple check those WES document requirements for your country and your level of education. Make sure you're sending them everything they need and that it's all in the right format. They're really picky about that stuff.
What if your university is just slow? They're taking forever to send your transcripts. That's out of your control, right?
True, but you're not totally powerless. Stay on top of it. Call your university regularly, ask for updates, and get any tracking information they have. If you have a tracking number, give it to WES. That way, they know when to expect your documents, and maybe they can speed things up on their end.
Good tip. Another thing that came up was name discrepancies. That seems like an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook, but it can cause a huge headache. Make sure the name on every single document, your transcripts, your degree, your ID, matches your passport exactly. Even a small difference can mess things up. And if you've had a legal name change, make sure you have the official paperwork to explain it.
Right, so consistency is key. We talked about this a bit earlier, but choosing the wrong report type can be a costly mistake, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. If you accidentally request the wrong report, like you get the document by document when you need the course by course, you might have to start the whole process over and pay again. So do your research. Figure out exactly what your target university or employer wants. Whether it's for a visa, a job, or grad school, make sure you get the right WES report.
So being super organized and detail-oriented is the name of the game here. What about payment problems? Can those hold things up?
Oh, for sure. Make sure you pay on time and that everything's accurate, the amount, the payment method, all of it. Any little mistake can cause delays.
And one thing that stood out in that 2025 tips article was the advice to check WES policies for non-standard transcripts. What exactly does that mean?
Right, so that's for people who did some of their learning outside the traditional university system. Maybe you took some online courses or got a diploma from a specialized program. WES has specific rules for how they evaluate those, so definitely check their website if that applies to you.
Got it. So it sounds like applicants should be prepared for the possibility of a document audit.
Yeah, it's not as scary as it sounds. They just want to make sure everything's legit. They might ask you for more documents if they have any questions. So just keep all your education-related paperwork handy, just in case.
Good advice. And the 2025 guide also mentioned that WES policies can change. That's something to watch out for, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sign up for their email updates, check their website regularly, especially if you're applying in 2025 or later. They might change their rules or their requirements, so staying in the loop is crucial.
Okay, so to sum it all up, what are the most important tips for someone who's about to tackle this WES evaluation?
All right, here's the cheat sheet. Number one, before you even lift a finger, go to the WES website and download that checklist. Find the ones specifically for your country and make sure you understand every single document they need. Don't assume anything. Number two, if you're sending physical documents, use a courier service like FedEx or DHL so you can track them. Number three, triple check that your university knows to send those transcripts directly to WES. Number four, start early. Aim to get the ball rolling at least 2 months before any deadlines you might have. Number five, see if your university offers electronic transcripts and if WES accepts them. That can really speed things up. And finally, if your documents aren't in English, get them translated by a certified translator. WES needs everything in English.
Awesome. That's super helpful. Now, taking a step back, why is all this effort with WES so important? What does it really mean in the long run for someone with international credentials who wants to make it in the U.S.?
Well, think of it this way. It's like getting your academic achievements recognized on a global stage. It opens doors to opportunities in the U.S. that might have been closed before, whether you want to study or work there. A WES evaluation makes sure U.S. institutions understand and appreciate your international education.
So it helps you fit into the U.S. system.
Exactly. For students, it means a smoother college application process. For professionals, it gives employers a clear picture of your qualifications, which can really boost your chances of landing a job.
So lots of potential benefits, but our sources also mention some potential downsides. What should people realistically be prepared for?
Right? It's important to be realistic. The whole process can be a bit of a hassle, to be honest. Getting those official documents from your university can take time, and sometimes it's complicated. WES processing also takes a few weeks, which can be tough if you're on a tight deadline. And of course, there's the cost. And sometimes WES might not recognize certain programs or certificates, which could be frustrating.
So it's not always perfect, but it's often necessary. Are there any other credential evaluation services out there besides WES?
There are a few, like Education Credential Evaluators, the International Education Research Foundation, and Joseph Silney and Associates. Some universities and employers accept evaluations from those places too, so you can do some research and see if those might be a good fit for you. But honestly, WES is the big one. They're super well respected, and they're often the only ones that are accepted.
Right. And speaking of real-life experiences, our sources included some fictional case studies, right? What did those stories teach us about the WES process?
Yeah, they were really interesting. They followed these fictional people like Priya, Anaya, and Radhika who wanted to study in the U.S. And even though they were made-up stories, they highlighted all the steps involved in the WES evaluation and the challenges that can pop up. It really showed how important it is to be prepared, to know what WES expects from you, and maybe even to get some help if you need it. It basically proves that if you approach the WES evaluation strategically, you're much more likely to achieve your academic goals in the U.S.
And we also got some expert opinions from admissions professionals at U.S. universities. What did they have to say about WES?
Oh, they were really insightful. They really emphasized how important WES evaluations are from the university's perspective. Like Rod Allen Harris from UC said that accurate WES evaluations are essential for making decisions about admissions to grad programs, scholarships, and even professional licenses. And Lisa Mitchell from NYU talked about how WES helps international students transition smoothly into the U.S. education system because it provides a standardized way to evaluate their qualifications.
So it's clear that WES is a respected and trusted part of the evaluation process for both individuals and institutions.
Totally. It creates a level of understanding and trust that benefits everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the most important thing for our listeners to remember about WES USA?
Well, the bottom line is WES USA is a game changer for people with international credentials who want to work or study in the U.S. It's really important to understand how their evaluation process works, get your ducks in a row with all your documents, and know what challenges might come up so you can deal with them. It might seem like a lot, but if you do it right, getting a WES evaluation can be a huge step toward achieving your goals in the U.S.
Absolutely. And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of WES USA. We wanted to give you all the info you need to feel confident about this process.
So what's next? Maybe head over to the WES website, start digging out those documents, and figure out which type of evaluation is right for you.
And as as you do that, think about this. WES is basically connecting the dots between international education and the US. What other awesome innovations or collaborations could we see in the future to make it even easier for talent and knowledge to move around the globe? It's definitely something to ponder.